During a family gathering, my uncle tried to publicly shame me for not helping him pay off his debt. He pointed at me and yelled, "You owe us for your success." I stood up, pulled out a paper and said, "Then explain this." His face turned white when he saw. During a family gathering, my uncle tried to publicly shame me for not helping him pay off his debt. He pointed at me and yelled, "You owe us for your success." I stood up, pulled out a paper and said, "Then explain this." His face turned white when he saw. I never thought a simple family gathering could turn into one of the most satisfying moments of my life. But here we are. For context, my family has never really been functional. There's always been some sort of drama, whether it's about money, grudges, or just general pettiness. I've spent most of my life distancing myself from it, but I still tried to be civil. I kept my distance but showed up for major events, partly out of obligation, partly to keep up appearances. Now my uncle, let's call him Frank, has always been the black sheep of the family, but not in the misunderstood, tragic way. No, Frank is the type of man who blames everyone else for his problems, refuses to take responsibility, and somehow, always has a new scheme to get rich quickly. He never sticks to a job for more than a few months, always has an excuse for why things don't work out, and is constantly borrowing money with the promise that he'll pay it back soon. He never does. I never really got involved in his messes. I had worked my ass off to get where I am. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I worked multiple jobs, took out loans, and sacrificed years of my life to build my career. No handouts, no shortcuts. But, according to Frank, my success was because of the family. Now, on to the gathering. It was a big family reunion, hosted at my cousin's house. I wasn't particularly thrilled about going, but I knew skipping it would just cause more drama, and I wasn't in the mood to deal with that later. Everything was fine at first: small talk, some decent food, catching up with cousins I actually liked. But then, Frank stood up, cleared his throat, and made his way to the center of the room. The moment I saw that smug look on his face, I knew something was coming. "Ladies and gentlemen," he started, dragging out the words like he was some kind of performer, "I just want to take a moment to talk about something very important. Something that affects not just me, but all of us." People started quieting down, giving him their attention. I took a sip of my drink and braced myself. "You see," he continued, "family is about supporting each other. It's about being there in times of need. And yet, some people here," he paused and turned to look directly at me, "seem to have forgotten that." I could already feel the tension shift in the room. I sighed, already tired of whatever nonsense he was about to spew. "You see, my dear nephew here," he gestured dramatically toward me, "has done very well for himself. Big house, fancy car, vacations, living the high life. And that's great. Really, it is." His tone was anything but sincere. "But what about the people who helped you get there? What about the family that supported you, that raised you, that made sacrifices so you could have the opportunities you did?" I stared at him, expressionless, as he continued. "I've hit some hard times," he said, shaking his head, playing up the victim act. "And all I've asked for is a little help, a little bit of generosity from someone who has more than enough. But instead, I get ignored, left to struggle while my own blood lives in luxury." Murmurs started spreading through the room. Some people looked at me, curious. Others just looked uncomfortable, knowing exactly where this was going. My mom, sitting on the other side of the room, was already rubbing her temples. She knew better than anyone that Frank was full of it. "But that's not how family should be, is it?" Frank continued, voice rising. "Family helps each other. Family doesn't turn their back when someone is drowning. So, I ask you all, is it fair that my own nephew refuses to help me while he sits on a fortune?" And there it was, the big dramatic accusation. He stood there, waiting for the room to react, expecting people to turn on me. Maybe he thought they'd start pressuring me, guilt-tripping me into handing over cash. But instead, the room was silent. All eyes were on me. I let the silence drag on for a few moments before I slowly stood up. I wasn't angry. If anything, I was amused, because what Frank didn't know was that I had come prepared. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a neatly folded paper and held it up. "That's really interesting, Frank," I said calmly. "Because if I owe you so much, then maybe you can explain this?" I unfolded the paper and held it up for everyone to see. Frank's face went pale the second he saw it. It was a legal document, specifically a contract, one with his signature on it. And it outlined something very, very interesting. Frank's face lost all color the moment he saw the paper in my hand. He knew exactly what it was. But I wasn't about to let him slither his way out of this. I held it up higher so everyone could see. "This," I said, my voice calm but firm, "is a signed loan agreement between Frank and me." The room fell dead silent. I turned to the crowd, making sure I had everyone's attention. "You see, this isn't the first time Frank has asked for money. A few years ago, when he was in desperate need, his words, not mine, I lent him a very generous sum. But I wasn't stupid. I had him sign a contract. Nothing crazy, just a simple agreement stating that he'd pay me back within 2 years. I paused, letting the words sink in. That was 5 years ago. People started shifting in their seats, whispering to each other. My mother sighed and shook her head, clearly not surprised. I turned back to Frank, who was now sweating. You never paid me back, I said, my voice sharp now. Not a single cent. And you never intended to, did you? He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I wasn't done. You want to talk about family, Frank? I asked, taking a step closer. You say family supports each other, but what do you call lying, manipulating, stealing? His face twitched. It's not like that, he stammered. Two was gonna pay you back, but what? I cut him off. You've had 5 years. And now, instead of even trying to settle your debt, you're standing here, in front of everyone, trying to guilt-trip me into handing over even more money? The tension in the room was thick. Nobody was on Frank's side now. Even the relatives who usually gave him the benefit of the doubt looked disgusted. But then, just when I thought I had cornered him, he snapped. Frank suddenly pointed a shaking finger at me, his face turning red. Oh, don't act so high and mighty, he yelled. You think you're better than us just because you have money? You think you did everything on your own? Who do you think raised you? Who fed you when you were a kid? Who made sacrifices so you could go to school? His voice grew louder, angrier. You owe us, all of us? You wouldn't be here without this family. There it was. The real reason behind his little speech. I should have seen it coming. Frank wasn't just after my money, he wanted to rewrite history. He wanted to make it seem like my success was his success. Like I had some huge unpaid debt to the family. Like I owed them everything. I took a deep breath. Then, very slowly, I pulled out another piece of paper. Okay, Frank, I said, keeping my voice steady. Since we're talking about the past, let's talk about the real sacrifices made. I unfolded the second document and turned to the crowd. Mom, I called, do you remember this? She squinted at the paper, then let out a bitter chuckle. Oh, I definitely remember that. I turned back to Frank. This, I said, is proof that when I was 18, I had to get a job on top of my studies because our dear Uncle Frank drained my mom's savings account. $15,000. Gone. Just like that. Gasps echoed through the room. Frank's eyes darted around, looking for an escape. That was a mistake, he sputtered. I didn't mean to, but you did it, I cut in sharply. And did you ever pay it back? Silence. I turned to my younger cousins. When I was in college, I worked double shifts at a gas station. I ate instant noodles for weeks at a time. And you know why? I gestured toward Frank. Because of him. Because my mother, his own sister, had to take out a second mortgage just to keep us afloat. The murmurs grew louder. Some of my aunts looked at Frank like he was something nasty stuck to their shoe. I wasn't finished. You want to talk about sacrifices, Frank? What about Mom having to skip doctor's appointments because she couldn't afford them? What about me having to beg for extra shifts just so we could have electricity? What about all those times you promised you'd pay it back and then just disappeared? Frank's jaw clenched. His face was burning red now. But before he could try to twist the story again, I took a step forward and delivered the final blow. And let's not forget the best part, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. After everything, after all the lies and the money you stole, you had the audacity to show up at my graduation and ask for more. Another round of gasps. Frank's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He looked around wildly, realizing that nobody was coming to his defense. I turned to the rest of the family. So, tell me, does that sound like someone who deserves my help? More silence. Frank's breathing was heavy now, his fists clenched. This is all a setup, he growled. You're just trying to turn everyone against me. I laughed. Actually laughed. I don't need to turn anyone against you, Frank. You did that all on your own. He looked around desperately. His usual tricks weren't working. No one was on his side. No one was defending him. He was alone. And then, just when I thought he might finally accept defeat, Frank did something I'll never forget. He lunged at me. Frank lunged at me like a wild animal, his face twisted in rage. For a split second, I thought he was actually going to hit me in the middle of a family gathering. But before he could even touch me, BAM, my cousin Mark, built like a linebacker, grabbed Frank midair and slammed him hard onto the couch. The whole room erupted into chaos. My aunt screamed. My Uncle George jumped up, ready to intervene. Frank thrashed like a madman, cursing, his face beat red. Get off me, you piece of enough, Mark barked, shoving him back down. You don't get to pull this crap. I took a deep breath, my hands clenched into fists. I had been expecting a tantrum, but not this. Are you out of your damn mind? My mother snapped, storming over. You're trying to attack your own nephew because he wouldn't bail you out? Frank was seething, but he was also trapped. He knew if he threw another punch, someone was calling the cops. And that's when something unexpected happened. Someone in the back of the room, my Aunt Patricia, usually quiet at gatherings, stood up. And what she said changed everything. You know what? She said, her voice shaking with anger. I've had enough of this. I wasn't going to say anything, but since Frank wants to talk about who owes who, let's talk about the money he stole from me. Wait, what? Frank's head snapped toward her. Pat, what the hell are you? You took my husband's life insurance money. The room froze. I felt my stomach drop. This was news to me. Patricia's husband, Uncle Rick, had passed away nearly 10 years ago. He had been a hard-working man, a good man. Everyone in the family respected him. What the hell are you talking about? Frank laughed nervously, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. You conned me, Patricia hissed, her hands shaking. After Rick died, I was grieving. I trusted you, and you told me you had a great investment opportunity that would double the money. I gave you $30,000, Frank. That was supposed to be for my kids, and you lost it all. People gasped. Frank shook his head frantically. I didn't lose it. It just didn't shut up. Patricia's voice cracked. You told me you'd pay it back in a year. It's been 10. Where's my money, Frank? Frank stammered, looking around, desperate for an escape. I took a step forward. Wow. First my mom's savings, then my money, and now Patricia's life insurance payout? I let out a bitter laugh. Tell me, Frank, how many other people here did you scam? Silence. Then another voice. I let him borrow $5,000 last year, my cousin Robert muttered. Said he just needed a little to get back on his feet. Never saw a dime back. More murmurs. I gave him $3,000. I gave him $10,000. One by one, half the damn room started speaking up. Frank had bled our family dry. And suddenly I realized what this was really about. This wasn't just some desperate attempt to get money out of me. Frank was drowning badly. And the only way he knew how to survive was to find another person to squeeze dry. That person was supposed to be me. But now? Now he was screwed. His breathing was erratic, his head darting around the room. Okay, look. He held up his hands. I know things got a little out of hand, but I can fix this. I just need a little more time. A little more help. If we all pitch in, are you seriously asking us for more money? I snapped. Frank flinched. Then, without another word, he bolted for the door. Frank! Someone yelled, but he didn't stop. He shoved past people, nearly knocking over a kid, grabbed his coat and ran outside. And just like that, he was gone. Frank thought he could just run away from everything. He thought he could keep stealing, lying, and manipulating his way through life, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and drained bank accounts. But this time, he messed with the wrong people. The second he bolted out that door, the family erupted into chaos. My mom was fuming, my Aunt Patricia was on the verge of tears, my cousins were pissed, and me? I was done. I turned to the room. We have enough proof to take him down. Let's do it. Patricia nodded. I want my money back. So do I, Robert said. One by one, everyone Frank had scammed stepped forward. So we made a plan. Step 1, legal action. Patricia was the first to take action. She went straight to her lawyer the next morning with all her evidence, bank statements, emails, texts, everything. Since Frank had tricked her into handing over the life insurance money under false promises, her lawyer said it was fraud, a criminal offense. Next I dug up my loan agreement with Frank, the one he signed but never paid back. Since it was a legally binding document, I filed a lawsuit against him. Then, one by one, other family members followed. Robert, my mom, a few aunts, even a distant cousin in Florida, all of them took legal action. By the time we were done, Frank was facing multiple lawsuits and a fraud investigation. Step 2, destroy his reputation. Frank had burned bridges in the family, but he still had connections. He still had friends, people who might fall for his lies. So we made sure they knew the truth. My cousin Sarah, a social media wizard, took the lead. She posted everything, screenshots of text messages, proof of bank transfers, even the legal documents. She didn't tag Frank directly, but it didn't matter. The post went viral within the community. People commented, shared, and messaged their own stories. Turns out, Frank had scammed more than just family. An old landlord commented that Frank skipped out on rent. A former coworker said Frank had stolen money from a company Christmas party. Someone even found a GoFundMe page Frank had set up for a fake medical emergency. Frank had been running his scams for years, and now Everyone knew. Step 3, hit him where it hurts. After about 2 weeks, we got word that Frank was hiding out at a friend's house. Turns out, his business ventures had crashed, his credit was maxed out, and now, with the lawsuits piling up, he was flat broke. He called my mom, begging. "Please, just tell them to drop the lawsuits," he pleaded. "I'll pay everyone back, I swear." Mom laughed. "Oh, like how you promised to pay me back? Like how you promised Patricia? Like how you promised literally everyone?" Silence. Then, in the most pathetic voice I've ever heard, he said, "I have nowhere to go." Mom smirked. "Not my problem, Frank." And then she hung up. Frank tried calling other family members. Nobody answered. Tried reaching out to friends. They had all seen the social media posts. They weren't falling for his tricks anymore. Within a month, Frank had lost everything. His car, repossessed. His apartment, evicted. His business, gone. And then, the final nail in the coffin. Patricia's lawyer won the fraud case. The court ruled that Frank had to pay back every cent of the $30,000 he stole from her. But guess what? He had no money. So they garnished his wages. Every job he tried to get, they took a chunk of his paycheck. He tried working under the table, but even then word got around. Nobody trusted him anymore. The aftermath: it's been about a year since we took Frank down. He still owes thousands to multiple family members. Nobody speaks to him. He drifts between low-paying jobs, barely scraping by. He has no support system, no friends, nothing. And me? I'm doing great. Still successful, still thriving. And best of all, completely free of his bullshit. Last I heard, he tried calling my mom again. She didn't even pick up. And that was the best revenge of all.